Iron Stories, Episode 22, Deescalation. Welcome back to another episode of Iron Stories. Last time we left off, Jebran and Katania were or are still trapped within the this forest, the forest of forbidden blood, or Tanglewood of forbidden blood to be precise, and they try to get out of it. Of course, because they don't like it here, they've encountered an iron racked born with this iron curse on it or whatever, and then they escaped some falling trees where the iron racked boar made its way through the woods. And just as Katania was able to jump away very quickly or nimbly, and Jebran had a bit worse outcome out of that. But they managed, and just as they did so, Katania was able to see a figure approaching from the forest, and it's for her a very unfamiliar creature, a creature we have seen before, or I have introduced before, way back with Kaivan, as he was the first one that entered this forest, and we as we found out that the last time that this forest, this Tanglewood of forest, was previously the Dark Forest, the one that Kaivan first entered way back. And I say way back because there's 100 years have passed since that, and the corruption has turned and converted this forest into a ravaged and desolated place. But Nasana seems to have somehow or she stayed here. She was able to survive here, and it seems like that she lives way longer than normal people do, the Ironlanders at least do. So Katania sees this unfamiliar creature. I mean, she doesn't know all this background, so she just sees this creature that has a gray-green skin, that is covered in what looks like scales, but the scales have the form of leaves and stuff, and the clothes are also made of, or the clothes that look, or the things that looks like clothes look like they're made of leaves and trees and branches and bark. And she has this wooden mask on, as all the Nodlas have in my world. So the Nodlas are the ones born from the forest. They have this beautifully made wooden mask that covers their face. It's maybe similar and maybe was a bit influenced from the Mandalorian. That basically that they do not remove their masks to show their true face, but only to their beloved, or something like that. And so they wear these masks. But her mask has, and that's what also Kaivan already saw, is so it looks like that they don't create new masks or repair their masks. It's like some form of a second identity to them, that you make this mask and you wear it until you die. So she has like a crack that splits up into the middle from the top, in the center of the mask, like it splits a little bit. It's not completely split apart, but there's like a you can see a crack in it quite clearly, and there's stuff broken off. It's like a small V shape that is broken into the mask, and it reveals more of this gray greenish skin underneath. So that's what what she sees, this creature coming to them. And Jebran, being more of the brutish type and more of the cautious type, immediately springs back up to his feet, takes his axe, and tries to move towards it, axe held high, in a defensive and in an aggressive stance, just to maybe try to intimidate the other person, to leave them alone, or just at least to show them, hey, we can defend ourselves. Katania is maybe a bit more fascinated by this thing, because the figure doesn't seem to be approaching in an aggressive way, not as similar as Jebran would be, just like moving slowly, or at least in a very deliberate steps towards them. And it seems almost as because they have more trouble, or they need more effort to traverse this land, or to traverse the forest, with all the branches down below, etc. They have to watch their step to not fall. It almost seems like that this creature is like almost like floating above the ground. It's like having a very light step on this forest floor. So it seems almost as the branches and leaves that are on the floor or on the bottom seem to make way, so that this creature can move through. So Nasara still seems to be somewhat in a symbiotic way connected to the forest, even though the forest itself there's still a symbiotic thing between them, but of course the forest has corrupted the whole thing, but still there's some part of nature that tries to fight back and still tries to communicate, or is still helping her in a way, I guess. So they see this figure approaching. As I said, Jebran, I would say, he is maybe not directly just going here in and tries to going on and make enter the fray, because he has taken some damage and he's quite out of it. I mean, he's quite hurt for the moment. There was a tree that has fallen on him, albeit just a small tree, but still. And the boar itself did some damage to him. So he's so I think some of his wounds are reopening and are bleeding again, which the small strips of clothes and small strips of fabric that they use to make a makeshift tourniquet, of course, has reopened the wound, and it's staining it in a deep red. But still, he's having a more aggressive stance, maybe in a way to defend himself as well. So it's like part of his fight or flight answer, or fight or flight reaction, is to get aggressive, try to intimidate the other party, so that at that point it may doesn't come to a confrontation, because the other party just says, nah, I don't want to mess with that. So to run away in fear, basically. So that's more that what he does. So I think he is he's facing danger. It's a move, face danger here, and as I said, he's doing it as an aggressive action, or with an aggressive stance behind it. So he rolls on iron, but it's a weak hit. So that means I succeed, but I face a troublesome cost. So maybe, I mean, I would say that Nasana herself, I mean, she's seeing this. I mean, Jebran still, for his older age, I would say, is still quite a muscle packed guy, and he is forcing his way to her, axe held up high, in maybe already drawn in a sense behind the shoulder, just to be able to just in a moment's notice bring it down on whatever is on the other side of it, and receiving the blunt hit and the blunt force of the sharp blade, or sharpish blade. So she immediately reacts to it, of course, and she reacts as well in a matter of being cautious of what is just moving towards her. So she's maybe moving away. But now that Jebran is moving maybe closer to his foe, where he may in his days would have just seen a humanoid person, now sees this figure before him. There is maybe parts of him that sees this thing for the first time, and he's taken back from it. I mean, there's other things that he didn't see before, but it's made more sense to him, because I mean, as I said, there were like the boars or bears that have this that there are most obviously bears and boars or whatever. There are animals or wild animals that have been transformed. It's unusual, but it's still a bear or a boar for him. There's nothing unusual about it. There is of course, then there are these husks, etc., where or like skeletons that attack him. It's unusual in the sense, yeah, I mean, they're dead. Why are they still walking? But it's still okay. He knows that's a human before him, or it was once a man or a woman or whatever. So it still has some sort of familiarity to it, and he can just recognize it as a monster, just something unnatural that he has to kill. Someone dead, and there's something maybe that he in his travels sees more, just because because the corruption spreads, and he sees it more and more, so he becomes accustomed to it. but seeing Asana here, which is something completely, just completely something new. So it looks like a humanoid person, and it reacts like a humanoid person. But it reacts like it reacts like he would suspect another human being or another Ironlander. So having some sort of emotional response to whatever he does. So either as well aggressive stands or defensive stands against his aggressive action. So it's something that he would normally see when he's talking to other people, etc. So that's that. But the form that is just before him, he has never seen this. It has more of a monster-like appearance to him because it's something very unfamiliar to him that is reacting very unfamiliar. Because normally, if he has a monster like this husk, etc., he knows, well, they all attack aggressively. They're aggressive by nature. They don't have emotion. They don't have emotions, or they don't think. They have instincts, and their instincts is to kill. So he has to kill them as well. But this humanoid figure before him is unfamiliar. So it's more for him. It's more in a monster category, so to speak, but it reacts with emotion. It reacts emotional. It doesn't react necessarily with instinct, but with intelligence behind it. He sees somebody with force and an axe coming to him, and it reacts intelligently, either by so it could have taken two responses, either like raise a shield or try to defend itself, or as well doing an aggressive stance. So that's what's very unfamiliar to him, and I would say that's the point where his spirit is broken because of this, because there's this unfamiliar thing, and he in return then feels, well, that's something I never encountered before, and I don't know how or what I should do, how I should react to it. And of course, there's if there's something unfamiliar to it, you are being afraid in some sense of it. So there's the fear of something new that comes to you. That's I would say how he endures his stress. It's because of all these things. Of course, being in split seconds, happening in split seconds here. What I just explained in like 5-6 minutes. But I think that's the gist of it, behind his reactions, his response, and why he gets this emotional lashback from his aggressive stance to it. So he endures stress, which removes one spirit from him. So he's still has 4. I mean, it's still very high. He's not completely out of it because of it, but of course it takes some stuff out of him. So now I roll again on spirit because it's higher than his heart. He has a very low heart, and it's a miss. Okay, I suffer also 1 momentum, so he goes down to 4 momentum from 5. Of course, which would make sense. This stops him a little bit in his track. Nisana is jumping back out of fear herself that this thing is coming towards her, and she, of course, and Jebran is as well. Taken aback by the sudden reaction of the other party, or the monster, so to speak, as well. And Katania sees all this, and she is more. She is not the direct confrontational person. That just because she has a bit more heart, she has very high heart, so that makes her more empathetic and more, maybe even a bit curious and more trying with I guess, diplomacy uh, to react with diplomacy instead of brute force. She still is has quite some strength in her, not to be mistaken, but she tries to use that strength more wisely, as would, in contrast to what Jebran would do. Jebran isn't very empathetic or sociable. He just has to be the toughest guy in the room, and if he isn't, he can't handle that, or he's handling it differently. So um, so I would say that uh, so Catania, I would say she's trying to maybe seeing this reaction, and seeing that the other creature, this monster, was not directly aggressive towards them. She may be more compelled to trying to react in a way to so in the more diplomatic way. So she tries to be more. She tries to be more. She tries to more. Well, I would say she tries just to talk to the person. So she sees as well that there is some intelligent response to the action, or to the action that Jebran did. So she tries to maybe more react to that. So I would say maybe, so she is maybe trying to talk both of them down. Um, um, so she's not trying to the direct aggressive approach, but she's trying to as I said, the diplomatic approach. So she's trying to compel. So she tries to pacify the situation, to not let it escalate too quickly. So she has to address, on one hand, she has to address the Jebran, to calm down, to stop whatever he's doing, and at the same time she has to address that unknown creature, which she doesn't even know if she could understand them. So that's maybe also kind of interesting for her as well. So she tries to persuade, or to persuade, or to pacify them both, to say so basically to say to Jebran, stand back, or wait a minute, and tries to also appeal to Nasana, to say, look, we just we don't mean it, or we don't want to hurt you. We're just here to defend ourselves. Just okay. So just a small information here. It looks like that my audio software just crashed or whatever. It didn't record after 20 minutes, or about like 20 minutes of my session here. So I have to now recount a bit what has happened, as best as I can, just to bring it back to the current state of all the people around it. So I think the last, what has happened was that Katania tries to compel to stand down everybody, and she was able to do so, albeit in a weak hit. So it was quite difficult, of course, to speak to something that you don't know, to something that you don't know how it would react, if it could even understand you, because very unfamiliar and very strange, of course. But she succeeded at least with a weak hit. So Jebran would stand down to some sort, but would still be very anxious and still be very cautious on what would happen next. So he has still his axe in his hands. He's clutching with both of his hands and keeping it close. He's not walking further towards Nisana to in an aggressive manner, in an aggressive stance, but he's standing there where he is right now, just clutching his axe and looking intensely at Nisana on the other end, and making her know that he could attack again if he wants to. And Nisana at the same time as well is backing down and seemingly hearing what Katania has to say or had said. She is holding up her hand as well in some sort of way to signify or to signal that she doesn't want any she doesn't want to hurt them as well. And being here for all these years, still she's able, and she's still because how these old races, all these old people are working, is they are keeping an eye out on this new race that has invaded, these new people that has invaded their lands, the Ironlanders that have come to their lands and in invading it, basically, but they're still keeping an eye out of him. And she has learned a bit from their language as well, which she already did present, or that she already used that with Kaivan as well, albeit also being it in very short sentences with a very thick accent, so to speak. And maybe not grammatically correct for their understanding. So basically a bit like Yoda speak, in a sense, that she is answering in maybe non-correct sentences for the ears for Jebran and Katania. But she's standing down, holding up her hands, and as well conveying this message, and she's saying actually that she doesn't mean harm to them as well, and she says that she could help, but that they should not talk here, it's not safe, and they should follow her. And I mean, still, they especially Jebran, he's definitely not buying it, or he's not that quickly trustful in doing so, and he's still having this aggressive stance and aggressive demeanor about him. He's not trusting the creature at all, especially because they don't know it. And I think he's still, again, he let out in a very brisk and maybe also a bit aggressive manner, barking almost out is to Nisana, basically the saying something in the lines of, who are you, what are you, because he never seen something like it before. So that's what he's barking out almost to Nisana, and she is as she's also weary of the situation, and she's also she's not quite she's not quite happy. No, well, not happy, but she's not like she doesn't like the situation currently, or at least like the place they are. She finds it very unsafe. So she wants to go away here. So she's basically just here to tell them, come on. And she doesn't answer him directly. And she's just like waiting for them to follow. And she doesn't like. She tries not to make any movement that would suggest that she would make an aggressive action here. So there's like still a tense situation. On the one side, you have Jebran that is very aggressive and wants to be wants to have the control of the situation. On the other side, Nasana that is aware of it, but she's also aware of the unsafe environment they're currently in. So she wants to get out of that. Well, unsafe in the sense of they're still in this forest that is corrupted and ravaged, etc. So she wants to get to a safer place where she has more control about her surroundings. So I think at that point again, Katania tries to soothe down Jebran again. So she moves towards him and is putting one hand onto one of his hands as well, that is on the that is clutching his axe in front of him, and she's like pushing it gently down in a manner to suggest he should put his weapon down. That she at least is trusting these creatures to some extent to not attack them. And she's also conveying this information to him to say if she wanted to, or if it wanted to attack us, it would have done so already. We should wait, we should hear. We want to get out of here, and if this creature is the way to do it, we should, for the time being, listen to what it has to say. If we still have the feeling that we need to react to it, we can still. But for the moment, let's not get out of here. It's probably better to cooperate. And Jebran is begrudgingly accepting the input of Katania, and is putting away his axe. He's putting it back onto his belt, so that it hangs on the side of him. But he's still holding onto it with one hand. So he has one hand onto on the hilt of the axe, just to be able to, like, in a moment's notice, draw it again, and to be ready to defend himself if need be. It's like an old cowboy in the old westerns, where they have one hand over the Colt, so that you can just draw it and shoot if necessary. And then similarly, he has like his hand over his axe, just that in a moment's notice he could draw it and attack if necessary as well. So that's how the situation got de-escalated to an extent, and Nasana could see that, okay, it's that, but I think at the whole time Jebran is like not breaking eye contact with Nasana. So he's still like keeping a close eye to Nasana, and watching what her reaction is to his every move as he's putting away his axe. And Nasana as well is like looking back to see, because for her the current most of the danger occurs from Jebran. So she's keeping an eye on him very clearly. And as she sees that he's putting away his weapon, she like halfway turns around and waves with her hand and just says briefly, "Come," and walks inwards into the forest, as it almost as it looks like even deeper into the forest, more or less like the counter direction that they would expect her to go. But they seemingly they follow behind her with a good distance. And as I said, like they keeping the distance, just they still don't know exactly what this creature is, what it is possibly capable of doing. So they keep their distance from it, but still to be within eye sight, just to not lose tracks of her. And what Katania could see is, yeah, as I described before, Nasana is like effortlessly or seemingly effortlessly being able to traverse the forest, whereas they have to keep out from the branches and forest floor and stones, etc., that are and roots that are on the forest floor, to not fall down from it, to not fall over stuff. So that is what Katania could see, and Jebran is still very wary of his situation. So he's looking always around, looking if there might be some sign of like other creatures in the trees or in the bushes or wherever. So he is half expecting an ambush here. So he's still like very much looking around for signs of others, and still having one hand on his axe to not let it out of his grip, to be able to defend himself very, very quickly if need be. So that is basically then how they were like walking half an hour, and at one point, or they will then reach the Sana's camp, as it was, or as we encountered it like so many years ago, or so many episodes for us, but many years ago for her, with Kaivan. So she was living in this hollow out tree where she made a little hut out of it. But mostly she used the hollow out tree as a sort of makeshift hut and bedroom for her to sleep in, just to keep the environment out, just to have a secure place or a safe place for her to keep in. But she over the years, I mean, as I said, she lives quite a little bit longer than the Ironlanders, and she has been here for at least 100 years. So she would have made this a bit more homey for her, and extend beyond this hollow out tree. So what she made is like a little weave, or a bigger weave out of branches and leaves, to create some sort of like tent-like sail that she could span across multiple poles or wooden sticks that she put into the floor to hold up this panel or the sail up high, so she has more room in front of her in front of her hut, or in front of the tree, to make more space that has a roof on it, so that she could like work outside even if it's raining. Or whatever, so she has like a roof where she could act more, and she has still the campfire. Her main campfire is outside of the tree, which would make sense. If you make a fire in a tree, the tree won't last long. So she has like the fire in front of front of there. There is like under this this tent-like structure. There's like so there's like a pile of logs. So there's a log pile there that she uses to stoke her campfire and to keep them dry from as I said, from the rain, etc., and from other environmental influences here. And she has like as well, there is like from a bit above the fire, there is like so the roof expands very still up high from the campfires. Maybe she even like has secured this roofing from nearby trees so to be able to raise it even higher. So she could also like hang some meat above the fire to let it dry, to smoke it, so that she can keep it for longer. There's also like pelt and leather in a corner which she can use to make new clothes, or which you could use to make fur that she can use for sleeping, as like a sleeping mat or whatever, that keeps her warm, especially at night, especially in winter, in the colder nights. Not necessarily as armor, or maybe just part of her armor is made of leather. So that's that. There's also multiple chests that she keeps in this camp that has more utensils in it, and there is like 3 smaller logs put around the campfire to make sort of sitting space for her and maybe for guests. While guests in quote unquote, there might be other Natlas or maybe other Ironlanders that have traveled into the forest that can leave, and she might have helped. So she is she's walking them to the camp, and she's not commanding them, but telling them to sit down. And as she does so, she goes to one of the chests and pulls out a stone cup and a stone roundish piece. So basically like a mortar and pestle that she pulls out. And then she pulled out of this chest as well 2-3 small pouches, and she's from these pouches she pulls out different herbs and grasses and begins to grind them in the mortar until a fine paste. Then she grabs some scraps of fabric that she has in this chest and smears it onto there, and is handing these pieces of fabric with this paste on it to Jebran, and tells him to use it to bandage his wounds, or basically just sending him for his wounds. And as she says that, Jebran gets aware, probably until now that the adrenaline has worn off from his fight or flight reaction from before. He's now aware of it, that again his wounds that he has encountered before are beginning to reopen again, and he can see that his bandages that they did is blood soaked out of it, and he's like looking at that and looking at what he is presented from this creature that he still doesn't know, he still doesn't fully trust. It could be poison that this creature is handing him. He doesn't know. He's not a healer to know, but he knows enough that there is such a thing as healing with herbs and grasses. He has seen it in the past as well. The Ironlander medicine works similarly. The forest people or the forest enclaves, they use similar techniques to tend to wounds. And we have seen this in the past as well, in our history, like shamans and medicine men. They employed similar techniques because they knew back then of healing properties of plants, as we still do to this day. Now we of course have a bit of better understanding what exactly chemically is working in it and why it helps. But back then there was just knowledge that has been passed down from generation to generation that more or less signifies which herbs and which grasses or which plants can be used to heal wounds. So Jebran would know that there is plants, of course, that they could heal, but there's of course also plants out there that could kill, like poisonous plants. So he is a bit of wary of just applying whatever it's handed to him, without being cautious that it could be poison. And with maybe his limited knowledge and survival knowledge, at a first glance he can't see like anything that could be poisonous. So begrudgingly he gives in at one point. There's like a minute of silence where Nasana is handing him these bandages, and Jebran just looking at them and deciding if he wants to really apply these bandages onto him or not. But in the end he gives in. He pulls away his bandages that are blood soaked and throws it into the fire. That stokes up a bit. And there's like blackish smoke coming from the burnt blood here, and then puts down these pieces of fabric with the paste on it on his wounds, and it begins to sting a bit. And it's a familiar pain, a familiar sting for him. He has encountered it before when, as I said, where his own people, the Ironlanders themselves applied medicine to open wounds. There's a similar pain, a similar hurt that occurred. So he probably thinks that whatever this thing gave me seems to be helping, and he's putting 2-3 of these bandages onto his wounds and reapplies some more bandages around it to secure it in place. And while he's he's trying to like mask his pain a bit, he still wants to show a bit his manliness, to not like scream out like a little girl from the pain he has. So he bites down on his tongue. So at this point, I would say that he heals himself from 1 health point, just from the makeshift help he got from Nasana, and she is maybe a little bit. As he's applying the bandages onto him, and maybe has to like scream inward screams of pain. She's maybe smiling a bit under her mask. Still, they still can't fully see her face. She's smiling a bit under his face, kind of sense of that keeps you right in not trusting me. And as she sees that, and then she puts away her tinsel as well, and takes as well a place near the fire, maybe puts in another log to rekindle it a bit. And then says to them, or specifically I think to Jebran, says to answer your question of who I am Nasana, and you have to explain to me, what are you doing in these woods? And that is where we end this session. As I said, little apologies. I hope I was able to recount the same story I recounted before. There's like 20-30 minute gap where it didn't record what I said, so I had to re-record it, and I hope I got the same sentiment again over. Nevertheless, quite interesting here, a situation where this time where it was more of a social interaction, social thing here that I had to like diffuse. Not so much a combat, which is also interesting, always interesting to do. So next time we are back, and there is probably some sort of happening, how they get out of these woods. Maybe they help Nasana. What has happened the last 100 years to Nasana? I don't know. I'm also thinking about giving Nasana a character sheet. So I might be doing a character sheet from Nasana, just to see what she might be now that there's maybe some sort of background story that could go on with her. I might want to explore this a bit more. So yeah, that's it for now. I hope to hear you again next time in the next episode. Hear you then.